I'm gonna take a bong rip. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today is a big day. Today, we are talking From Zero. We are LPLive. My name is Dylan. We got our friend Ben Newberry. Up there is our friend Anthony, A-Stat, LP Guitars. And right here is the one and only Mr. Haninator, Mark himself. Finally got him on the podcast to talk about the new fucking Linkin Park album. First time in 7 years we can say that. How we feeling, gentlemen?
What new album? Fill me in.
He's been using Internet Explorer. He doesn't know what's going on yet. The album comes out on Friday. It is not Friday, but we've had a chance to hear the album. Thousands of fans have. We've had probably more, at least 100 listening parties happen around the world. A bunch of fans everywhere got to listen to the album early. I think there's one or two countries still left to do it, but pretty much everyone's gotten a good chance to listen to the album. Everyone's starting to form their thoughts. But we're gonna go track by track, I guess. First piece of new music, it's only 20 seconds. We've had a lot of drama with like 20-second songs lately in our chat, but fuck empty spaces. From Zero, the intro. It's a little like choir piece, and then it ends with a little voice note.
First thing I noticed is that whole choir thing, it actually follows the chords of the chorus of Emptiness Machine, which is the following track. Maybe it was like something that Mike was playing around with to see if he was putting it in the song, and then he didn't use it, and they made it an intro or something. But then the voice clip, I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's one of Mike's kids saying, "From zero, you mean like from nothing?" And then there's a pause, and you hear him start to say, "Oh, you like your old band," or at least I'm assuming that's what they say, because it gets cut off. And that's literally the whole thing.
Maybe I just haven't listened to it enough yet, but I didn't realize the Emptiness Machine connection.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either until you mentioned it. Now, I bet you when I go back and listen to the intro, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah.
What's interesting about the intro is that we saw the track list and the song times a long time ago. With it only being 20 seconds, I was kind of leaning on it being the clip on the tour trailer on YouTube, which is pretty much part of the Inception intro that they use live. And so I was like, oh, the album is going to start with those little clips of In the End and Numb in that build-up intro. And then we heard the album, and that actually is not the From Zero intro. That was just for the tour trailer. And so I am a little bit surprised that didn't find its way into the album.
But that
first song.
Yeah, I guess we were worried we were going to spend like 20 minutes on this one 20-second song.
We're spending 1 minute per second of music.
There's a lot to discuss, but there's far more to discuss for song number 2.
I wasn't sure if you were going to just skip to cut the bridge, but I was just going to say that Emptiness Machine, now that we've heard the whole album, I have to say I don't think I've had this positive of a reaction to a lead single off a Linkin Park album in a long time. I still think it's like one of the best songs on the record. Like it's up there top like 3 for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Emptiness Machine is probably, now that we've sat on it for about 2 months, is probably the best lead single since at least Catalyst, and likely What I've Done. Catalyst is a fantastic track, and I really have taken a liking to it lately, but when Catalyst was released, it had the mixed reaction, right, because it was so different. Catalyst now has done nothing but grow into an epic song, and people have liked it more and more as time goes on. But in terms of initial reaction, I'm not sure we've seen this type of across-the-board reaction from casual fans and hardcore fans since What I've Done, especially when you're going through Burn It Down, Guilty All the Same, Heavy. I mean, some of those are great tracks, but for some reason, Emptiness Machine just checks all the boxes and is universally pretty much loved.
Yeah, well, in terms of it being the big comeback single, we never had a gap longer than the one between Meteora and Minutes to Midnight until now. So the big reaction to it being the comeback thing, and for a bunch of other reasons too, it reminded me of that reaction a lot too, just from the community.
I can't remember the last time I've had this much of like an emotional connection to like not even just like a Linkin Park song, but like a song in general. Every time I hear this song, I'll probably think about like this time of my life, like how crazy this one song sent like thousands and thousands of millions of people into this just frenzy, and now look where we are.
Yeah, great song and a good one to kick off the album.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was gonna say, anytime I hear this song in the future, I'm always gonna think of September 5th and everything that came with that, like the starting of the tour, the new beginning. And I thought that whoever came up with making that the single was a genius, because Overflow or Heavy as the Crown would not have touched it as like a comeback single, because it was such a good, like, if Heavy as the Crown came out, I was like, oh, they're just trying to do what they already did. The Emptiness Machine is just unique, it's fresh, it's new, and it's still probably one of the best songs of the album after hearing the album a few times through.
I think what makes it also such a great single now that we've heard the rest of the album is that it really does kind of capture a bit of everything that the album has going on, like electronics in the background, Mike singing. I guess it doesn't have any rapping on it, but Mike and Emily kind of trading off, Emily doing both more like heavier vocals and like cleaner vocals. It has a good, it's pretty much the From Zero song. No song really represents the album as much as the Emptiness Machine does.
I agree. And like Mark said earlier, that it makes me think of like, we haven't had a single that really encapsulated that since like The Catalyst, to be honest. Like, they really encapsulated the vibe of a whole album.
Yeah, I mean, overall, things were different with Minutes to Midnight. You didn't do as many pre-release singles, and that's really become a thing since Minutes to Midnight. So with every album since then, including A Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns really where the pre-release started with Wretches and Kings. But it's only gotten better with this album than ever before, with Emptiness Machine, Heavy as the Crown, and Over Each Other. Those are three pretty solid songs overall, especially compared to when we're talking about like tracks like Battle Symphony and Lies Breed Misery. Those types of songs definitely get a very mixed reaction from the LP community. Whether you like them or not, the reaction to those songs is mixed. Wretches and Kings was not, and that was really the first pre-release track that I can remember, at least. Wretches was universally loved, but it followed The Catalyst, which kind of had a mixed reaction. For From Zero, across the board, it's pretty much three solid tracks across the board.
And three like different tracks that sort of give you different tastes of what like this new incarnation of the band can do.
Agreed. And I watch like the reaction videos a lot, and it's funny because after Heavy as the Crown and they were gonna react to Over Each Other, they're like, oh, what kind of heavy shit we got now? Oh snap. And then they're like, no, this is still good.
Let's talk about Cut the Bridge. Now, there's some mixed responses to it, but I think it's a fun song. At least that can be said for sure. It's kind of like a sister song to Bleed It Out, almost. Like it's Bleed It Out with a bit more of is poppier, but it's also a bit like heavier somehow.
Yeah, it feels like if Bleed It Out was on One More Light, or
Yeah.
kind of almost like a talking to myself kind of thing. I was talking to, before Mark got in here, I was saying that I think Cut the Bridge, at least, I've only listened to the album 4 or 5 times, but right now it's probably my least favorite song, but that's not to say that it's not good. It's just, it was one of those songs that I listened to and I was just like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And that was kind of just the extent of my reaction to it.
I love Colin's drumming on it the most, I think. I also love
Colin's drumming on the whole record.
This man has brought a lot to the table, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of with Anthony. The Cut the Bridge right now is probably my least favorite. However, the random double bass drum fill at the end of it that kind of came out of nowhere was like fire. So I will say that I would love that part. But as song as a whole, it's probably at the bottom for me.
I'm about the same. Colin's strengths with the band at this point, obviously, one of them would be his fills that he puts in, whether it's an old song or a new song. But yes, that's a good point. That he has intricate little parts across the album like that really stick out. But especially live, there's a few times live in some of the tracks. I mean, you could look at Breaking the Habit, or you could look at, there's 100 examples in the show. Some of the little fills that he does on the songs are pretty noticeable. They're kind of one of his signature traits. And so that's good that carried over to his recording and production of the album as well.
Ben, remind me, you're a drummer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you might have a stronger opinion on this than me, but the thing that kind of clicked with me with Colin's drumming and how it sounds versus Rob's. I always felt like Rob's was like more cymbal washy, whereas Collins is like the kick and the snare are really in your face and like punchy.
Oh yeah, no, that's 100% for sure. Like, and actually, Cut the Bridge is a good example of that because the snare and the kick, like during the verses of that, are crazy. But no, you are correct. Rob stuff was definitely cymbal washed, and Colin does a lot more fills. I feel like Mark, you were saying. I mean, I still can't get over my jaws on the floor at the second verse of Paper Cut. That's all I gotta say.
I think Cut the Bridge, if they do play it live, that shit'll go crazy. It sounds like it's built to be played live, but we know what happened last time we said that.
Although now we've gotten 2 debuts off of the Hunting Party on this tour, so
At least.
I was gonna say, Mark literally said, "Dang, it's such a shame From Zero's coming out because 2024 is the year of the Hunting Party."
Any song from the Hunting Party is in play right now. But yeah, Cut the Bridge, first listen. It doesn't rank near the top tracks on the album for me. It's fine. It's similar to Bleed It Out. It's not a big standout on the album for me, but that's okay.
Yeah, I like it
There
as a
isn't a-
beginning song. I think it sets a good, like, early album like energy. That's kind of it's much more relaxed than Emptiness Machine. Emptiness Machine is like there's a drama to it. It's kind of a serious track. Cut the Bridge is more like you can tell they're having a bit more like fun, just being a band rather than coming in with like a mission statement almost.
I know when Colin did that Instagram live before one of the first shows, he said something about he sang backup vocals on one song. I think the chorus of Cut the Bridge is probably it, because that's like a big gang vocal thing.
The Cut It Down thing.
I heard.
Yeah.
I think I heard a vocal when I was listening to it. I heard one voice that I was like, that one sounds different. There was one layer of vocals that was like there's someone different in there, and I think it was Colin. But yeah, any should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna say that there isn't a song on this record that I was like, oh, that one kind of sucks. Cut the Bridge is just if something's got to be the bottom song, that's probably it for me right now.
Fair enough.
Agreed, which is crazy because low key, I don't think I could say that for a Linkin Park record since 1,000 Suns, where I'm like, the song is like, damn, what the hell is this? Yeah, it's the first time I felt that since 1,000 Suns.
Yeah.
Because Living Things On, there's always one song that I was like,
I think every album kind of has, at least for me, like everything eventually kind of like grows on me. There's some songs I still think are like definitively like the worst in my opinion, but like a lot of songs I didn't really connect with at a time. Once I go back and revisit that album a while later, a lot of these songs like start clicking with me, especially over the last couple of years.
I don't think I've actually ever had that experience with an album when I first heard it, because I was going to say, oh, I liked everything on 1,000 Suns, but then I was thinking back, and for a while, I didn't like Blackout at all. I love that song now. But
I think for us, too, the live perspective of things, like, really change how we, like, end up hearing the song. Like, honestly, like, I feel like in my head, like, a lot of the times when I'm listening to the studio versions of certain songs, like I've heard these live recordings so much that like those little bits that they would change, like that's what I hear. And I think that'll happen with this album too. It's already happened with like Emptiness Machine and Over Each Other, especially Over Each Other for me. Hearing that one live really brought a whole new dimension to it, I think. Is that the next song? What's next? Heavy is the Crown.
yeah, Heavy is the Crown.
I was like, I completely forgot. Well, that's another one that's out, but I think for me with singles, I feel like the context of being in an album changes a lot about it, because when it's out especially before the album itself comes out, like putting a single out kind of changes that moment of like, okay, now it's this song's time to shine, and here's everything we can possibly do with it. You know what I mean? And they did that with the whole League of Legends, the trailer and the performance. But I think on the album, it's kind of a nice bridge into like the actually heavy stuff. This album has it kind of has like that Minutes to Midnight thing where it's heavy, then soft, then heavy, then soft, or like something different at least. Like than the previous song you just heard. Not that I mean, Emptiness Machine and Cut the Bridge are pretty like heavy starts to like energetic starts to the album. But Heavy as the Crown kind of brings it back to. It's the first one that really brings it back to old school Linkin Park. I feel Emptiness Machine is kind of like a minutes to midnight to present kind of vibe, whereas Heavy as the Crown goes straight back to like Meteora, but also has elements of like living things and even like the hunting party in it. But I think that should still be hitting on the album, if not more. Like Emily's scream is just like, every time I hear that, I'm like, I think I might have to rewind this like 3 times.
I do find it interesting how different her scream on the record sounds from how she does it live. And I don't just mean like how like the live version she cuts it a little shorter, but like when she does it live, it's like in a much deeper register in her voice.
I wonder how many takes she must have done. I also wonder, I guess this is a good part. I think a lot of discussion has been had about this song, but we can also talk about the Arcane version, which I guess came first, like in the process of it. Like that's what they started with, at least the chorus line. And then kind of as they built the song, the rest of it came together. But I wonder what point Mike was just like, yo, can you scream for like 20 seconds on this dramatic song for the TV show?
Ben and I went to the listening party here in Georgia a few days ago, this past weekend. And I think we both walked away with the same comment about Heavy as the Crown in the context of the album. When you're listening to the album start to finish, is a great song on the album. I wouldn't say it's a song that I listen to a ton as a single for whatever reason. You know, sometimes you just can't explain why your subconscious is drawn to some songs versus others. I was more of an Emptiness Machine type of person instead of a Heavy as the Crown type of person. I wasn't streaming Heavy as the Crown very much. But in the context of the album, when we listened to the album, both times that we listened to it, because the record store played it twice, I was like, wow, the song really rips, and it's placement on the album. And to me, for whatever reason, it's a stronger track when you're listening to the album. Combined with that and seeing it live, in Texas the day before that, I walked away a bigger fan of Heavy as the Crown than I previously was.
Yeah, I really like Heavy as the Crown in the context of the album because you get 3 very energetic songs right at the front. Sometimes on other albums, I think Minutes to Midnight's a good example where it went Given Up, Leave Out All the Rest, Bleed It Out, where they were kind of alternating between ballads and like more up-tempo stuff. But on this one, it's like, yeah, let's the album's short enough anyway. Let's just put like some of the higher energy stuff right at the front.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really like the chorus of that song, and the song rips. I think it sounds really good within the album. Funny you mentioned that though, Anthony, because like after Heavy as the Crown is when it goes down and then back up again. So, but it definitely has a really energetic start. And I'm glad they didn't like I think the track listing is really good, because if they would have put over each other, you know, in between like Cut the Bridge and Heavy as the Crown, that would have been a very like Minutes to Midnight vibe right there with it.
They do good at like picking the moments when it's like, let's do what we've always done, but also let's do something completely new. You know what I mean? Like they were very smart, especially because I imagine they must have a lot of demos from this album and a lot of like outtakes. So I imagine like a lot of these songs they picked with that sort of mindset that let's give them a little bit, instead of it being like in previous records where it's like, let's add something to the new, or let's add something new to the old. Now they're saying, let's give them some old, and then let's just give them some completely new stuff. The thing is a bold step, but it also pays off a lot.
I kind of wonder if, because, you know, in the past, every record from like Minutes to Midnight and especially 1,000 Suns on, it was like, we are absolutely not doing something that sounds like Hybrid Theory and Meteora. I wonder if the fact that they had so much time away from playing the Hybrid Theory and Meteora songs live made them like more open to the idea of recording more stuff that sounded like that. Because even if they weren't doing new music that sounded like that, they still were playing those songs every night on tour for 17 years, you know?
Yeah, I think it also, a lot of people, I think a lot of the Hybrid Theory Meteora comparisons are kind of in terms of he's rapping over a heavy song. Because a lot of the album, I feel it takes more from like modern like punk, like hardcore music than it does like nu metal in general. But I mean, there's songs like Two-Face that obviously like, they're like, let me make like a fucking Meteora jam or something, but...
I was gonna say one more thing on Heavy as the Crown. The vocal effects Mike used And like the rap verses really remind me of like Hybrid Theory a lot, actually. Like the echoey effects, and y'all know what I mean when I say that. But yeah, like the vocal effects is very like Hybrid Theory-esque style to me.
Yeah, I agree, and it's funny hearing that because I always thought that was more of a Don Gilmore kind of thing because you didn't hear it much after the first two records.
I think it's kind of funny to me. People are like heard this song and are like, yo, Meteor is back. But to me, it kind of just sounds like if Linkin Park made Throne by Bring Me the Horizon, which also sounds like if Bring Me the Horizon made Faint by Linkin Park. It's funny how that all comes together.
Solid second song to release. I know I said that for Heavy as the Crown when we talked about Emptiness Machine, but just wanted to reiterate that point that once we heard Heavy as the Crown as the second song, I was like, we might be in good shape here. Because admittedly, I've not been a fan of Battle Symphony, and admittedly, I've not been a fan of Until It's Gone, and admittedly, I've not been a fan of Live Screed Misery, which is ironic because that's 3 albums in a row where I thought the second track release specifically from 3 albums in a row, which is wild, is one of the weakest, if not the weakest song on the album. Literally any other song on the Hunting Party would have been a better second release song. And pretty much the same can be said for One More Light and Living Things, except for maybe like Skin to Bone and Until It Breaks or something. But the arsenal in which they had to pick the second song for those albums, there were much stronger choices. And when we heard Heavy as the Crown on this one, I was like, okay, we got it right. They got it right. We're going to be good with this.
Huge agree on that.
I think Heavy as the Crown brought back kind of I think they knew there would be a lot of people being like doing the Chester comparisons and be like, she's trying to be like this, or like she can't do this, she's a girl, or like some like trivial stuff like that, you know. And then they came in with this like you don't think we can do what we used to? Here's a scream that's pretty much as long as Given Up, take it or leave it. It brought both songs appealed to the same and different people at the same time, which I think was a very smart choice.
I did want to just talk about the Arcane version a little bit more too, just because so there's still a little bit of we don't know exactly what the deal with that one is because I forget his real name, Andrew something, but Mako co-wrote that version of the song, but he's not credited as a writer on the album. So the artist name is just listed as Mike and Emily. And so I'm curious how much of like the instrumental aspects of that song were done by Mako versus how much of it was Mike.
The heavy part does like not sound. It sounds like something Mike wouldn't do. It sounds like
Sleep Token.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a more
modern, very much so.
Like a modern-minded rock producer.
It slaps anyway, though.
One other note about that version, since we're the live folks, if they can incorporate that into the live show somehow. Now, I'm not ever saying that we should get rid of the Inception and Resolution parts of the show because those are arguably some of the best intros the band has ever done live right now. And I'm very glad that we have those intros. But if they can figure out some way next year to incorporate that version of Heavy as the Crown as maybe like a long intro to that or just something creative down the line, I think that would come off very good live. By all means, every single live variation they've done of songs on this massive new set that they have has just been fantastic and pretty much universally liked. So I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, or bring the intro that they played live for the League of Legends Worlds.
Yeah, honestly, it's such a... Like, that intro is so short that I don't see why they wouldn't just keep using it. It has a little bit of... It doesn't have the whole, like, heavy part, but it had, like, some of the build-up. It's too good to not use in some capacity. Like, you know, it's so dramatic, which I feel like is a lot of what they go for with their extended parts. The next song is another song that we've already heard before the album comes out. Over Each Other. It was the first ballad, really, of the single run, or of the album in general, I guess. Mixed reactions. A lot at first. Here's what I'll say about it. At first, I was just kind of like, this is just a song. Like, it didn't really hit me as anything special, and in general, it kind of isn't. It is kind of just like a rock song. But I think where Linkin Park excels is kind of being able to send such a strong message with like relative simplicity. Like they have like pop choruses in these like heavy rock songs. And I think that kind of, it really shines with Emily's voice here. And it gives a new perspective kind of that we haven't had from a songwriter's like standpoint in their discography, that I think it adds a nice texture. It feels more of an Emily song, but I feel like we're gonna need those as well. You know what I mean? Going forward.
I feel like in a weird way, like lyrically speaking, it's almost like a sister song to With You. There really aren't a lot of Linkin Park songs that are written from the perspective of like a person talking directly to another person. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot more stuff that's internal struggle or like more generalization stuff that you can interpret either way. But I feel like Over Each Other is pretty specifically about a relationship.
Well, the music video definitely highlighted that too.
Great, one of the best Linkin Park music videos there is also. I have to
Huge
say.
agree. That song, I was on the like, so when I first heard it, I was like, eh. Since then, it's grown on me. And the music video actually helped it a lot for me because I was like, that music video is so good. Like, probably Johan's best work yet, to be honest. It was really good. And then, like, the live videos of it were really good too. So that song is really growing on me. And it's definitely radio friendly. It's probably going to be blasted on multiple different types of radios.
The thing that was hard for me to grasp when Over Each Other came out, very unintentionally, was this can be an LP song with no mic vocals on it. And when she was leading, I was like, wow, I don't think I ever even realized, of course we knew the lineup of the band and that they were releasing new music. I don't even think it crossed my mind that, we're actually going to get music without mic on it vocally, and Emily will be the lead singer. And then, of course, after a couple of days, that feeling goes away, and there's nothing negative about that. I was just a little shocked, but I think that was strategically a good song to release as the third song. Again, back to my point of they did a great job with the pre-release songs for this album because it shows a different side of Emily's voice. And the record itself, they did a really good job of selecting these 10 songs because they show so many different sides of Emily and so much of what they're capable of with her vocally, because she sings in so many different styles. She screams. She has extremely high vocals. She has low vocals. She sings over a bunch of different experimental music, familiar music, rock music. So I thought that song specifically was a good one to pre-release before the album because it already, put your foot in the door as to what Emily can do with the band outside of just a standard radio rock song.
If I were to boil each of the 3 pre-release songs down into like a little summary, it'd be like, okay, Emptiness Machine is like the, hey, mission statement, we're back kind of thing. Heavy as the Crown is the, we can still do this old stuff / Emily can do a lot of what Chester could do. And then Over Each Other is the, hey, Emily can sing like really pretty too.
I think to add to that also, like, Over Each Other is the first moment really that we have had as like new fans to like emotionally connect with her, because I think over the years, like, we all have our own emotional connections to certain parts of like Linkin Park's discography, but with Emptiness Machine and Heavy as the Crown, it's kind of more like A-Stat said, it's a mission statement and more of like a look at what we can do or look at what we can still do, versus Over Each Other, it's like, by the way, we've also been going through shit just like you for the last 7 years we've been away, And I think it's good to have a song like that before the album comes out, because I think they want people to maintain their like emotional connection to the band even through these like new changes, and having moments like this where we can sort of dive into not only how she's able to perform, but how she's able to write and like be emotional through her music and through her voice, which is something we all like appreciated about Chester, is that he was screaming at the top of his lungs, but like with a purpose, like you could tell there was pain and like passion behind that. And in the same way that like the soft moments of their discography would give us a like deeper look into like his emotions or his feelings, and that's kind of what Over Each Other starts to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's not that it's uncommon necessarily, but like I think a lot of times with music, a lot of people would just, or in today's like music, a lot of people just say, yeah, it sounds good. But the thing that was so special about Linkin Park to a lot of people in the past was more than the music. It was like the emotional connection to the band. And I think them to like kind of put that in front of the album release with Over Each Other was a really smart move too. It'd be like we could still have that emotional connection where we could start a new emotional connection to like this new era. Because I think for Linkin Park fans, that's probably just about as important than like the music itself, if not more important.
It's good to have like a moment that sort of makes you pump the brakes and think about stuff a little bit, versus everything up to that point had been like energy, excitement, tie in with League of Legends. It's all just cool, yay kind of stuff. And I also wanted to say that going back to the music video a little bit, I've had a few tweets that randomly got a lot of engagement during this like promo like period, but there's one I was like, Emily has been in the band for about 15 minutes and Johan has already killed her in a music video.
I mean, she disintegrated in the first one, so he really cut to the chase. I actually have a question for Mark about Over Each Other, because you're the only one of us who's heard it live. Because I remember when I first heard like a good live recording from Dallas, it was Paris. I was like, I feel like the live mix of it has such a greater depth to the instruments. Like it feels more dynamic. It felt like much stronger, and especially seeing it's the first song that Emily plays guitar on with the band, which is also nice. Seeing like what she can bring to the table, and like it's kind of nice seeing her like have that extra connection to the song, especially how emotional it is. But did seeing it live kind of like change how you perceive the song?
I didn't dislike the song when it was released. It was just, to me, it was just a song. But what I took away from the Texas show is that song has really good live production. So, going into the Texas show, I didn't watch anything from Paris because I was like, oh, they're debuting a new stadium stage. This is, the third stage, and I don't really want to see anything until I'm actually there in person. And I
set this guy up, by the way. Before going into the Texas show, I was like, yeah, there's not really any surprises. There's nothing really gonna happen.
That's right. And then all the surprises happened.
The world imploded.
They really loaded in the production on that song in a good way, and I've got nothing but great things to say about how great that song comes across live. I think it's one of the better, maybe the Emptiness Machine is really good live, but Over Each Other is one or two in the top songs live so far from the album to me, because the lights and the lasers and all that stuff is really good, and it sounds good with Emily on guitar. Just another classic song from them that just comes across really good live, and they're really good about that. If you look back at the discography all the way from day one to now, many, many, many songs in the catalog come, almost all of them. There's very few that don't. They always come off really good live, and that's a great example of a song that does come off good live. And I'm glad they're playing it. I'm glad it's in a good spot in the set. It seems like I went back and looked at Paris, but it seems like now it's moved a little later and there's replaced Friendly Fire. I think that's a great spot in the set because of the tempo of the song and the flow of the show. I really like the spot of it, and it's definitely a later set highlight for me. I came out of that show saying, wow, that's a really good live song.
Can we just talk about how much their live production team is absolutely crushing it on this tour?
Oh, they're going nuts.
Oh, they are absolutely going nuts. Like, Mark, what you said, it's like a lot of the vibe I had, even though I never got to see any live from the videos, is the vibe I had from, like, a lot of the One More Light songs. Like, when they were played live, they were actually a lot better to me than they were on the album. But no, the production team is absolutely killing it. This is probably the best Linkin Park production I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's definitely the best they've ever had. I mean, I could probably give a 30-minute video review of the production of the show, but
that's next episode.
I'm very impressed with the stadium production. I love the 360 production. It's really cool, but we're recording this on the day that the teasers are starting for the tour. We're not sure exactly what's happening with the tour or not, but it's looking like arenas and they could bring the 360 back. But it was really cool for me to be able to at least one time be able to say that I saw the production in the stadium, because I was completely blown away by how crystal clear the sound was. The mix was so spot on, and Nick, who was also there, who wasn't able to join us tonight, he'll completely agree with that because we talked about it after the show. The mix is arguably the best I've heard from them since Pooch was involved with the band. Really, really good mix, and the production is just absolutely incredible. One thing that I wanted to note about the production, if we're going to talk about it for a second, is the cues for the lights are more on time than they've ever been. So if you look back to previous live videos, especially for like No More Sorrow in 2008 or so, every now and then the lights would be off by 0.01 seconds, enough that you would notice if you were really paying attention. It would kind of bother you, right? But the lighting now is so on point, and it's really continued this theme from One More Light through Post-Traumatic to now, where they've really not emphasized the video as much. Of course, there's great video in the show with Catalyst and Waiting for the End and whatnot, but They really have the emphasis on the lights continuing from the One More Light era, where the fog and the lights create such a dramatic effect on the songs, and they really just bring a really cool experience to the show. I've noticed this at all of the shows I've seen so far, and I'm glad that they continue down that path because it's just making the show so great. And I really do think it's the best production they've ever had. Big thumbs up for me.
Yeah, we could also appreciate if Overflow, or God, I keep doing that, Over Each Other, continues to replace Friendly Fire. We all got to see Friendly Fire live. Might be the last time in a long time.
Okay, let's put our screamy pants on.
All right, this is where things really get crazy. Casualty. I don't even know where to start with this one. Everything about this song has been insane, from like how it actually is to how they premiered it live. Like, this is like Linkin Park's version of like Spit It Out by Slipknot. Just straight up like anger. It's a riot as a song.
Has there ever been a Linkin Park song that had no clean vocals at all until now?
I think this is
Probably
the first.
I think so. Unless like maybe there's a demo that I'm thinking that I'm missing, but yeah.
What about War?
I mean, War's still kind of singing some of it though.
He sings like the whoa. But yeah, Emily ain't singing shit in this one. This is just like crazy. I fucking love this song.
Even Mike's vocals are just so like, what the fuck just happened? Like, that was literally I was just like, what?
Mike is
like,
on some like Zach De La Roca shit.
The veracity, I guess, it's like what do you even call it? Like, it's not screaming, it's just aggressive singing.
It's like a growl almost.
Yeah. And it's wild to me. It's like the song just surprises me so much. I really like it, and I know for a fact, like live, the pits go crazy. Mark, you were there.
Mark was in it. Mark was the pit.
That definitely was a wild live song. I think I have a very unique take on this song because the thing that I took away from this song, which is completely separate from the vocals, right? The vocals are the standpoint for everyone and the heaviness of the song. The thing I took away from the song is that this is the point in the album where Joe Hahn is really making a statement, and that continues to the end of the album. And there's something to be said about his input on this album and his work on this album, because this is the most, at least scratching and samples wise, that he's done on the albums in quite a long time. It just seems like his interest in the band has just really resurged, and he's really, making his musical statement on the album. And for me, it really begins with this track and continues through the rest of the album. There's a lot of standout moments from him that I really like.
I love the bridge. Like when the scratches on the bridge, and on that bridge notes. I don't know if any of you know who Maria Brink is, but what Emily does, like at that in the bridge, like if she's building it up, like the cracked. I think Anthony, were you the one in the chat that mentioned that?
Yeah, I was pointing out because at the first show when they did it, she didn't really do the bridge that way, which kind of threw me off when I heard the album version for the first time because I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, that totally does sound like Maria Brink from In This Moment.
I'm gonna mention that at the end, but that's one of my highlights on this album as a whole is Joe Hahn. I swear, have we had this much like obvious scratching since Meteora?
No, we have not. And I mean, to me, I got into the band with Hybrid Theory, and so the scratching is just such an essential part of the band's sound. It's just unfortunate to me that after Meteora, while I like those albums, I'm a very big fan of Minutes to Midnight and very big fan of 1,000 Suns. It's very unfortunate that feature from Joe, that scratching element, was just really absent for so many albums. And I remember when Minutes to Midnight was released, there were a lot of comments about that, and it never really came back in full until this album. And it's just kind of a full circle moment for the fans because Joe has really embraced that on this album, and it really hasn't shied away from it at all. And it sounds great because, as everyone knows, that's just such a core part of the original sound of the band. And for whatever reason, it was gone for a while, and now I'm very personally glad it's back because it sounds really good.
Yeah, and not just him doing scratching, but the fact that like in the live show, Joe's put like a lot more energetic than he used to be. There are scratching parts in older songs that he stopped doing for a while that he's doing again now. He's like really into it, and I really love seeing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember in One More Light videos, he'd be spending an hour of the hour-and-a-half set going around taking pictures. Now he's so into it, and he has a lot to do. Like, it's great. That's like one of the first things I noticed when I even saw like the LA show and even the premiere or the launch show. And then like when I saw him in New York, obviously I was like, man, I hadn't seen Joe this energetic in a minute. The only songs he's going around taking pictures on are the hunting party songs.
I think what's fun too about his picture taking is now his camera is actually like connected to the screens. So like on like Giving Up, you like just get his perspective, like what's going on. And then when he gives Emily his camera. Or just moments like this, like they're so much more involved, it feels like, for sure.
I actually, for whatever reason, didn't pay attention to it was connected to the screen part for the first few shows because, I couldn't even tell you if it was, but I wasn't paying attention to the video screens that much. But in Texas, there was a moment in the show where I was watching the video screens because they were so prominent and they're so large in the stadium production that I was like, where the hell did this camera angle on Colin come from? Like an inch from his face. It's actually a really cool angle on the drums. Surprised I haven't seen this more. And then I made the connection. I was like, oh, that's Joe walking around back there.
He's upgraded.
Pretty interesting.
He's doing it live now.
People are stressing about Emily wrecking Colin's drums at some point.
I'm worried about
flipping off the drums and dropping Joe's camera.
I wonder if that's part of it. He's like, Emily, there's a lot of expensive shit on this stage. You cannot be launching your body.
But if that ever happens, think of the dope video it's going to make.
I can't wait to hear Casualty live myself.
One other thing with the live version from Texas was on the last, I guess you'd call it a chorus, the very last I Know All the Secrets You Keep thing. She went into like this really high, screechy deathcore kind of thing for a second. And it was really awesome. And then I was a little disappointed that's not on the record.
So, like, to me, I think on the record, it's barely there, but it's like like she just barely goes higher. But no, like the live, that was like, when that came out, I was like, Will Ramos, what? And then on the album, I was like, first time I heard it, I was like, no, they didn't do that actually. And then second time I heard it, like, well, she goes higher. Just barely, but nothing like live.
I think it's the kind of song that when you're performing it, it seems like you just kind of push air out and hope for the best.
Don't really have to worry about singing any wrong notes if there are none.
I also it should also be noted that when they were promoting the countdown, they were tweeting, "It's only a matter of time." So even like under our noses, they were sneaking this stuff in. It's crazy.
I mean, huge shout out to Adam and the team and the marketing team over there because this marketing has been insane.
I was going to say, speaking of like the lyrical references, I don't know if anybody else pointed this out, but like in Two-Face, counting to zero, which is exactly what they did.
My very first listen to the album, I never catch anything in any song because I'm always so oblivious to everything going on in music, but that was the one thing on the album that I caught very first time when that lyric came across in Two-Face. I was like, oh my gosh, a nod to this in the middle of the album.
But that is jumping ahead just a little bit, so
we're almost
there. Well, what is the next song?
Overflow. This is where we get experimental. When we were talking about it before we started, I called it Fine, like the Mike Shinoda song Fine. That song's sister. It has that same kind of like ominous, dark, synthy build, but then it also kind of soars a little bit in like a dreamier space than Fine did. It's a very unique song for them. Like, I don't think there's anything else they've done like this.
It's like Fine and Liftoff.
Even Mike's like delivery is like completely new. Like, I don't think he's ever really done anything like that. Which is a much more like modern kind of like delivery he gave.
It's just so unique. I was telling Mark this, and I may have said it, like after so many albums and so many years, the fact that they can still create something so like fresh and unique is kind of, I mean, that's awesome. I don't dislike the song, and I actually like the song, but it was just caught me off guard so much, especially coming after Casualty. Mike's vocal like performance and this album as a whole, he was so all over the place. Like his vocal talents has like grown like tremendously, and obviously his solo stuff helped with that. Already Over, we saw a little bit of that. Fine, saw a little bit of it.
I had a much different couple of first things that it reminded me of than I think I've seen anybody else talk about. So first of all, like the fact that it's kind of built around this really big boomy drum beat, but it's like a really slow tempo, reminded me of When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin.
Of course, to the point where I thought they sampled it, and I was like, well, they couldn't because no one can sample them. That was like they recreated that sound.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it's kind of this vibey, ominous sort of thing that rolls through the whole thing. But then the we're going down thing Do you remember the song Scream off of Chris Cornell's solo record? I don't know why. First thing that popped into my head. The messing with my brain when you want to see me fall. That part.
Good comparison. That's a really cool, really cool Chris Cornell album. And I think a lot of LP fans are attracted to it because that was the album he was touring on Project Rev. I got the same vibe with the When the Levee Breaks because I was like, wow, they obviously sampled this, but they didn't. It's almost to me like they were creating batches of songs that were super experimental, and they kind of had to, maybe, this is just a guess, maybe like reel it in at some point and be like, well, we can't drop a crazy album as the comeback. But there's moments like this song that really show you that they can really go in any direction after this album. So it kind of makes me interested in what comes next because Overflow is super unique. Sound-wise, it doesn't remind me of this song, but just the fact that it's so different, it reminds me of Robot Boy because there's so much random stuff going on. That's the comparison I drew immediately. And Robot Boy was probably one of my least favorite songs from A Thousand Suns, but now I've come to really love that song. I think Overflow is a very interesting part of the album. I like it. I like the back and forth with Mike and Emily. I think it's important for them to show different ways that their vocals can interact on the album besides stereotypical Linkin Park rap sing, you know, the usual recipe for an LP song. When they do it kind of like this, and then it happens again on the last song, which we'll get to, which is also a great song. I think that's again showing different sides of what the band could do with Emily in the band, and I'm a pretty big fan.
It's gonna be crazy live when they do like the ending part where it just goes straight like heavy, like Sleep Token ass ending. When Emily starts like doing the to overflow, that shit's gonna go. The lights are gonna be crazy. I can already tell.
Yeah, the production crew is gonna have a blast with that one. I love there isn't really like anything super. I haven't like analyzed it super closely to see like what the guitar is doing, but like just at the end there's that really fuzzy sort of like purposely not played perfect guitar riff that just cuts through. But the best way I can describe that song is it's just this vibe where it's just this very floating kind of vibey thing that I got the same kind of Robot Boy feeling that Mark mentioned, and Lift Off of Post-Traumatic too just really gave me the same feeling.
All right, so that was Overflow. I went to a different Linkinpedia page, and I lost the track list.
You don't have it memorized yet?
No. I've been listening to it in like random order, so I don't know what comes after what. Two-Faced.
Oh boy.
Now this one you can say is an old school fucking song. This sounds straight out of... They could have put this on like the Meteora 20 anniversary as a demo, and I wouldn't have batted an eye. I would have been like, yeah, it checks out.
I was going to say, Two-Faced is literally the song that they were like, oh crap, we just found this. We should have put this with the Meteora 20 release. Like, no, we'll just make it a new song.
It even does the thing at the start with the sample where they're listening to like a zero. What is it? Is it stick and move or fuse?
It's fuse.
That it like starts playing for like a second and a half, and then like you can hear the sound of the tape flipping, and then on the other...
I think it's technically at the end of Overflow instead of the beginning of this, but yeah.
We skipped it. The Overflow discussion, so here we are. I think it's gonna go crazy live too when they do eventually play it. Like all the crowds on this tour have been incredible, but like some crowds like Seoul and Bogota,
Bogota was fucking nuts.
So loud.
We are not ready
the crowd,
for Friday.
For Brazil, it's gonna be like I need to hear a full arena or stadium of people just shouting this song.
I guarantee you those Brazilians will know every word to the album.
They knew the words before the album, before Emptiness Machine came out, I'm sure.
I know we give them a lot of crap, but they are some of the craziest fans like on the planet.
In a great way.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're bound to be louder than the damn PA system. Might not even hear the band.
Back to Two-Faced. We can also, like, that bridge. I don't even know.
My first listen of the album, that bridge was the best. I had the biggest stupid grin on my face through that whole thing. Because it's not just the scratching. It's the back and forth interplay between the scratching and the screaming that I'm going, oh my God, we have not heard this in 20 fucking years.
Literally. This is the song people have been asking for since, like... This is for all the people who are like, go back to Meteora. This is the proof they can, but they usually don't want to.
So, like earlier when I was saying, like I watch like Metal Burb and like Orion and like Nick Nocturnal, like their review or their reactions sometimes. They're gonna go absolutely crazy with this. This is so nostalgic. This is what we've wanted this whole time. But and it's so funny to me because, like it was said earlier, we're never gonna go back to that. We're never gonna make another song like Hybrid Theory, Meteora. Literally made the most Meteora Hybrid Theory song they could possibly make. Like,
well, it also like holds its own, like as a From Zero song, which is the best part.
I think on my first listen to the album, this was the highlight track for me.
No, it's my favorite too. And a big part of that is what Anthony said earlier. The scratching and the bridge with the vocals. I was like, oh my, one step closer. Holy shit. This is like, I haven't heard this in so long.
What's funny is it elevated the song so much because like the first half of the song, like the chorus is about as simple of a chorus as you can write. And I was just like, okay. And then the bridge hits and I was like, oh, hello there, figure 9.
And then that last chorus, you were like, two-faced caught in the middle.
Exactly.
Like, I'm fucking bored now.
Figure 9 comment killed me. But it's true. It's a very accurate comparison. It's just fucking funny.
It's crazy we're saying that in 2024.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I don't know if you read it, but it's so funny because Nick in his review that he posted is literally, I think he said figure 0.1, like 0.10.
It's just figure 10.
We
Plaster
never got
3.
Mambo number 6, but we got figure 10.
We got Plaster 3 and figure 10 in the same in one go.
Step the fuck up, Lou Bega.
LPLive's calling you out. Great song. This is gonna be go be one of those LPLive favorite songs. I feel like where everyone's just like, this shit needs to be in the set at all times.
Except Nick. One of the only people I've ever met in my life. If not, no, actually in person or somebody that I actually know. The only person I know that has Meteora at the bottom.
It's at my
He-
bottom. So
You know what? One of my other thoughts was Gecky will fucking love this.
We should unban him for a day just to let him post his review, and then back to the cell.
Gecky, Zach, if you're watching this, I actually did not mean that in like a mean way. Like I feel like you'll actually really love that song.
This song's going to get a lot of praise when it's released. When we're recording this, there's a lot of rumors that the song will be released, but as of the recording date, there's no sight of the song anywhere. But I think if the rumors are true and the song does get released before the album, it's going to go over very well.
On that note, let's move into one more light-esque song on the album, I feel. Which also happens to be, I think it's my favorite song. That's not the Emptiness Machine. But this song is number 2 for me. Stained, my pretty little pop song. Something about it, I think it just resonates with me. I love the lyrics. I love the melodies. It may not be the most unique melody or anything, but like it's Linkin Park at probably its finest, in my opinion. And I love me some pop Linkin Park.
This album, in this sense, gives me a feel of like modern day Hybrid Theory in the sense where you have like One Step Closer, Heavy as Hell, and then like the pop song on that album at that time would be like In the End. Stained gives that vibe. Stained is so good, and the melody, I was saying earlier, and I've said this multiple times, but like there's gonna be a DJ or producer that takes that and remixes it because it's so like EDM-esque sounding.
It'd be another opportunity for a Steve Aoki collab.
I truly don't have a lot of thoughts on this song because this was one of the ones in the album that I have not spent a lot of time with. It's just there. I'm going to have to revisit it. But it's surrounded by songs on the front end and back end that I do like a lot. So I'll have to spend more time with Stain.
This is probably the most emotional one besides Good Things Go. I think every emotional song kind of steps it up like another level.
Emily's voice is super like angelic. I don't know, it's like very good in the song. It really showcases like that side of her way, like even more.
Yeah, Stained is. I'm sort of in the same boat as Mark, where like I don't feel too strongly about it right now, just because of how I feel about the songs on either side of it. I could see it being a song that really grows on me. I could also just as likely see it being a song that I kind of get sick of after a while. I really don't know right now. Before we were recording, I did point out, like, I hope this doesn't ruin the song for somebody, but the chorus melody actually made me think of Heart Attack by Demi Lovato.
And I'll
I got
say
it.
I'm probably the
100%.
song's #1 defender right now. I love this song. I don't think I'll ever, cause I'm weird in my like favorite Linkin Park. Like "Sorry for Now" is one of my favorite Linkin Park songs, and this kind of
I do
hits me
get
in the
that
same
vibe from
way.
this one too.
This one kind of hits me in the same way that "Sorry for Now" hits. It's a simple emotional premise, but it's one that kind of resonates with me. Beyond it being a Linkin Park song, just it being a song, I think it's a nicely written song and brings another completely different vibe to the table. That's it's both new and sort of familiar for Linkin Park. Like it shows they're even stepping like using One More Light as a stepping stone, you know, like it's not just some forgotten record, like it's still part of their sound, and this record is another extension of that.
I know when Living Things came out, they said that it was like kind of a culmination of everything that they had done up to that point. I feel like this record succeeds at that more so than Living Things did.
Much
Oh,
more. Very good point. And that is one of my summarizing thoughts on the album because it draws from just about everything that the band has done before. Every album in some way has some sort of either subliminal or noticeable impact on the sound of this album. And that's not a bad thing at all, especially for a comeback album. It reminds people of what the band can do from all these different sounds and eras of the band. But it's also really fresh in terms of the style for some of the music, and it shows what they can do from here. Like they've already laid groundwork for the next album that could be completely experimental, or we've heard rumors that they've been working on songs right now for some sort of 2025 release possibly. I mean, who knows what even that could sound like. It could just continue down the same path.
Sure. I mean, and they've had like not to be like they've been working on all of this for like the last 7 years, but I'm sure they all have like music they've worked on in the last 7 years that they've been like, this could be brought to the drawing board for Linkin Park. And now I think especially with the next record they do, it'll be even more telling about the future they have, because now they kind of don't have to have all of these songs that are kind of proof that they can do what they still did. Like they already kind of proved themselves with this record. So now they're free to just do what they want, which is, I feel like, has always kind of been what they desire to do, is just like take things in a new step. So to see where that new step takes us next will be very interesting, whether it's in a heavy route or a pop route or both somehow. Speaking of the heavy route, the penultimate song.
Do you think they abbreviated the title of this just because they see us doing it all the time?
That would be funny.
Every Linkin Park song that is more than 3 words gets abbreviated by the community. It's just a thing that we do.
We should make it a point to like not abbreviate this song whenever we mention it. We should
Yeah, we
type it
only
out
ever
full.
write it out by its full name.
I mean, more than 2 words. I mean, I abbreviate what I've done.
I think even in between, in pieces, get abbreviated. Valentine's Day. I don't even know like what the proper way to say this is. IGYEIH. I gave you everything I have. Yeah, whatever the fuck you want to say.
That's what my wife said when it came up on the the infotainment thing on my car when we were listening to it in the car earlier. Yeah.
I mean, she goes, yeah. She just had to like, go ig at the start of that, and then pretty much have it in every format.
Shout out to the little step up Easter egg at the beginning of this.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
just
lots of Easter
another
eggs throughout the album. We haven't even found them all, but
Oh, I'm sure.
people are starting to catch on to some of them, like from Joe's Gas Station Breaks, Hybrid Theory vinyl. There's some stuff from that. There's all sorts of stuff in the album that we will eventually uncover, although
We'll
I'm
have
sure
to do
Mike
like a
hit some of
dissecting
them
podcast episode.
pretty deeply, but we'll get to them.
That'll have to be a whole other episode once we've had a couple months to really take everything apart.
We'll find them. Don't worry, we'll find them.
This song might be heavier than Casualty, just in terms of like, this is just straight up like, let's melt your face off. The riffs are crazy. The chorus, I guess, is more catchy than Casualty is, but it's still like pretty fucking raw.
I love that this album actually has some riffs that are riffs, because we've had songs that have guitars in them, but they're just playing chords.
It's actually something going on. There's a lot of precedents broken on this album that I think it's leaked into the live show too. Yeah, this song is just odd. This is another song that has to be played live. Like maybe rotate it with Casualty, but like this is one of those songs that really encapsulate when Mike said this album's like a little fireball, like a 30-minute fireball. Like this this song's a fireball within the fireball for sure. This is the one
Yeah.
that really, I remember he said he was listening to a lot of like modern like hardcore music, like Gel, and I was like, this song really sounds like that kind of stuff.
The end of it, where she's just repeating the last line over and over, that's one of the most like raw things I've heard them do. I almost wonder if it was like Mike going, Emily, I just want you to keep repeating that line until your voice fucking breaks, because that's what it sounds like happened.
I did the lyrics for it on Linkinpedia, and like some of the lines, it's from now on got amnesia, but it's like really hard to tell which is which.
Does it actually say that in the lyric sheet, like in the vinyl?
It does. The problem with the lyric sheet on the vinyl is all it says is one from now on I don't need you, and then from now on got amnesia. So I have no idea how many. I honestly don't know which is which. But it's not like she says it once and then says the other one. It's like every couple she randomly does it, which I think adds to the rawness. It's like a little less. It's much more unexpected.
See, I thought it was just I don't need you every time, and that her voice just got like more ragged as she went, and like her pronunciation got less clear.
The last one, the very last one, is the only one you can like really tell, because the rest of it, she's just like screaming that shit at the top of her lungs. But the very last scream, she definitely says got amnesia. But I'm pretty sure there's at least one other.
The end of the song is really a punk ending to the song, like a punk band would do, in my opinion, where it just has this crashing end. It really reminds me of New Noise by Refuse, the ending to that song, where it's just chaos. I don't love the song because it kind of reminds me of that melodic metal thing Mike did on Twitch in the middle of COVID. I can't get that out of my head.
The intro riff is actually very similar.
I can't shake that. But the comparison I have, or thing about this song that I like, is I've always been the biggest fan ever of Chester singing something and then Mike coming back in with the little rap, aka the LP DNA. You hear that on a song like More the Victim really grasps that concept really well. Now in this song, one thing that I really like is Mike is kind of doing his thing, and then Emily comes back in. It kind of flips the script at the end of that verse in the beginning, and I think that's pretty cool. I'm just a fan of the band changing it up and doing something different, and I think overall Emily's done some really cool shit on this album, and that's one moment where when I first heard that I was like, all right, let's go.
For me, I think like my highlight from this song is once again Joe's scratches. I like his scratches in the song a lot. But yeah, this song screams, let's bring Knock Loose to open up for us.
Maybe they got the song title from some random lady on an airplane too.
Some lady sneezed next to Mike like, yeah. It's like, We've reached the finale, an emotional finale. I saw someone comment, a lot of Linkin Park albums end with songs that don't really sound like a ending. And I think Good Things Go kind of follows that. Especially because one cool thing about this song is that it ends and then the intro begins. So if you listen to this album on loop, it'll just perfectly loop, which I'm sure has something to do with
you could kind of just
Zero.
start it at any random point, like just pick a song and just let it go, and it just keeps going.
Pretty much.
Like there doesn't necessarily have to be a beginning or an end to it. It's just,
and that is how I listen to the record mostly to this point.
Which, Dylan, you were kind of saying it a second ago, but with what Anthony said goes more to your point about how it's like the from zero concept, where it's like there is no ending. You know, right now, like we don't know what is next, but it's not over. Good Things Go for me is probably the most emotionally heartstrong song on the album. Dylan mentioned it earlier. It's like each time there was an emotional driven song, they're getting like better and better. And I think Good Things Go encapsulates that. It's incredible. Like I think Mike's vocal deliver is probably one of the best I've heard from him. It kind of has them rapping, singing, like it's really good. An emotional song, I would say. It's like probably more than any other song on the album.
Here we are again, where the band is doing something different on the album, which I like. You have the slow rapping from Mike. You have the really high vocals from Emily that get even higher later in the song. It's again, as I've said 1,000 times, it's just showing the different strengths that she brings to the table with whatever songwriting is brought to the table instrumentally. And I'm sure she does contribute that way as well, since she plays guitar and is a songwriter. But overall, it's a really interesting way to end the album. I do think it's one of the stronger tracks on the album. Traditionally, the band has done a good job with putting stronger songs at the end. I'm thinking back from the beginnings, they've always had really cool songs at the end, whether the band likes pushing me away or not. I think that it's a solid song to end the album with.
When the track listing for the album first came out, and just going off of the titles, my initial feeling was that the song was going to be about Chester. And it took me a minute to like kind of get around the fact that that wasn't it. But that's just me projecting my own expectations on it. But it's just a really good, I feel like it touches on a couple things that we don't typically hear from them. Like, I was going back and talking about in Over Each Other, we don't hear a lot of songs that are about relationships, like person to person, kind of like second person perspective almost. But I don't know, the fact that there's a part where it's like saying thank you, even though like thank you for helping me grow as a person, basically, even if like the outcome was bad. I'm just kind of summarizing, but I don't know, that's kind of a different concept than something we've heard from them before, you know?
A lot of it I feel like has to do with the fact that, pretty obvious, but like Emily is a woman, and that brings a perspective that this band never really had beyond like some collaborations. But now I feel like it almost amplifies things. Like here you have Mike Shinoda, who's lived his life, and here you have Emily Armstrong, who's new to this, both singing the same the same words, but like with such a different attachment to them. I think Emily said that a lot when discussing like rehearsing the new music. Like she said, or even the old music, like in the Zane Lowe interview, she said, you have to build a new connection with some songs that's like, especially in the role she's thrust into, where she doesn't want to seem like she's just trying to fill someone's shoes. She's trying to take a project in a new direction with her, and she's part of it. This is one of those songs where I feel like Mike's part, maybe it could be about Chester, you know? It could be like I feel like it's been raining in my head for 100 days. It could be about like that time. It could be from the post-traumatic beat, but it also comes from like, then you have Emily sing it, and it's like, it takes on a different life. And that happened with Mike and Chester in the past, but I feel like that element of the band has a whole new dimension to it now, given that we have such a new and different perspective in the songwriting department than we've ever had before. And I think this song really is both amplified by that and like shows it off really well.
I'm interested in what the band has to say when they inevitably do a track by track. I would assume that something like that, since this is the comeback album, will come out in one of the interviews eventually when the album is released later this week or next week.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm also interested to see a lot of the LPTV making of when they start showing studio footage and stuff, which I assume they'll probably do at some point. That would be really cool to see, seeing how some of these came together.
I want the making of from this album to be like a Netflix documentary or something, like some like full blown.
Agreed. Bring back like the Thousand Suns or like Minutes to Midnight DVD making of, you know?
Yeah,
they should have did
exactly.
that for a bundle.
The shift away from the band doing making of documentaries from a band that's been so creative and innovative and fun and had such a passionate diehard following from day one, to lose the documentaries for the album is just, as from the fan side of things, has just been catastrophically unfortunate, because every single documentary that they've done for an album, the making of, it's been really cool. I mean, you've seen just those clips from the Meteora one just take on a life of their own and become this outrageously epic little 5-second clip of something years later, or people will go and, you know, you saw what happened with Wizard Song and shit like that. But just over time, I mean, because of that Meteora DVD, that's what made Meteora 20's entire rollout and release so epic. From then on, I mean, the Minutes to Midnight one is fantastic. The Thousand Suns one is epic. Living Things has the little, I forgot if it was an Xbox exclusive, but it's the Inside Living Things or whatever it was. That was cool too. And then it was, since then, they've really fallen off, and I'm glad that they finally released some stuff for the Hunting Party, but we got absolutely nothing, I think, right, for One More Light besides Heavy. I really hope that we are able to return with the new LPTV, and big shout out to the LPTV team with Mark. It's really been great to have those back, because those also were missing during One More Light for whatever reason. So I'm glad that those are back. And across the board, I think there's a lot of opportunity, along with the great touring they're about to do, to really show some cool studio footage, because I think fans would really be interested in how these songs came to be and how they were written and Emily's collaboration in the process, and of course with Brad and Colin as well. I think that would be really cool.
To tie it all up, I think from reading people's reactions from the listening parties that like this is the one that hit people the most in general, like emotionally. And I think that tying this whole record off with that emotional climax is such a good idea because it's something like kind of not spoken about on this album, even though it's like definitely part of the deal, is like part of the pressures, that both they faced, like bringing the band back, and the fans faced, like embracing this new era of it. All this uncertainty, we spent most of this record kind of celebrating and like kind of showing that we're having fun with the music and that we can do what we used to do, and this is what we used to do. But it's also like I'm sure there's so much fear on their side too of like, what if it doesn't go how it did? And there's, from the fan side too, it's like, I'm sure all of us at points in the last 7 years were like, are we going to need to keep doing this? Like, does LPLive need to like keep going for 10 more years, like 15 more years, however long? Because like it was uncertain. We didn't know. That all kind of bubbles up into this. We've had all these emotions we kind of didn't address for the rest of the record, or like the whole period of their comeback so far. And now for this final, to like let it all out in this like last song, I think is another like very smart and powerful moment this record has, even right as it comes to a close.
One thing that really hit me on this song was Mike's rapping in the bridge. Yeah, I don't even really want to call it a criticism, just like an observation I've had about Mike's rapping over the years is like, he does angry, he does like confrontational, cocky. He conveys those emotions like really well. But like when he's rapping about like more introspective, vulnerable things, he tends to take on this more like straightforward type feel. And I've heard him talk about this, that like part of it is growing up in like the culture of being in a Japanese family, that there's like kind of a certain amount of being a stoic, unemotional person kind of thing that comes with that. So just to hear him like actually kind of let loose in this vulnerable way, it kind of, it's sort of like on some of the post-traumatic stuff, like Over Again and Watching As I Fall. Usually if something hits me emotionally on a song, it's gonna be either Chester or Emily, like one of the singing kind of thing. So to have that come from Mike for a change was like really something that I really took note of.
I think like everyone in the world, even beyond Linkin Park fans, since the time they've been gone, so much has happened. Everyone's lived their lives, and COVID happened. It's like so many things in the world have happened, and now this album is them taking a step in general of like accepting that and like being like, okay, we can still take new steps and we can still build off the legacy we've been building off of for half of our lives now. There's so much now. Good Things Go is like the final nail in the coffin of like them letting go of the past eras and like not letting go and like let's forget about them, but being able to like take the next steps. I feel like this song was like instrumental in that for them. And the emotions it packs with it, I think really from even with like, as you said, like Mike being vulnerable, like that's something I think he's learned himself, like with the post-traumatic album. I think we see that in the band members, like in their performance and in the lyrics. It's almost like we're catching back up as old friends or old family. And Good Things Go is a nice little like ribbon on top for all of that. Any final thoughts on the record?
It's one of those records where like there are a couple of big standout tracks and like just everything else is solid for me. I really like the fact that it plays in a loop. The only other record I can think of like that is The Wall by Pink Floyd, but that's a double album that's like 4 times as long as this. I don't know. I just feel like the record did everything it needed to do. It's got something for everybody. I know there are always going to be the people that can't get past the fact that it's not Chester anymore. And that is what it is. It's fine. But for anybody that's looking for some specific thing that sounds like Linkin Park, it's there somewhere on the record. And I think back to like what Mike said about not changing the band name. It's like if you called this anything other than Linkin Park, it would be the dumbest thing, because like I'm thinking like if this was any other band putting out this record, all people would say is that it's a Linkin Park ripoff. That being the case, why would they not do it?
Yeah, I mean, even Chester said that about Stone Temple Pilots too. ironically, when he went in with them and they mentioned or discussed changing their name, and Chester was like, why would you do that? You have a legacy to build on and to go forward with. But no, like my final thoughts on the record are kind of similar. To me, this record, there's no record that encapsulates what everything they have done and what they can do more than this. And I know, Mark, you mentioned it earlier, but this is like a way better, in my opinion, Living Things. Like, it truly actually does show. Like, this is one of the only Linkin Park records I can think of that has songs, it's kind of like Minutes to Midnight, I guess, that are like just completely different from each other. It's like even on Living Things, like, yeah, they added stuff, or they encapsulate or try to encapsulate everything they have done into something new, but all of the songs kind of had a vibe. But with this record, it's everywhere. To have something like Casualty and like I Give You Everything I Have on the same record as like Stand and Good Things Go. I mean, not even like the heaviness vocally aspect of it, but like the instrumentals, like it's all over the place. And I really like that. I mean, I have a few standouts, obviously. Like I pretty much can say I think Two-Face, Stain, Good Things Go, and Emptiness Machine is probably like my favorite tracks. As a whole, when it comes into discography, I would probably right now, subject to change, but I would put it, think below 1,000 Suns, which for me is in like the 4 range. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it, and I'm just glad they're back and they're having fun, and you can tell they're having fun with this record, and the live shows are a whole nother story.
I think it's important with this album that you don't have to force yourself to rank it amongst the other LP albums. I think that this is such a different body of work, although I completely agree this is still LP. They should have never even considered changing the band name, which they didn't. You don't have to force yourself to say, oh, how does this stack up to Hybrid Theory? How does this stack up to Meteora? If this era shows us anything, it just shows how legendary Chester really was and very underappreciated during his time on this earth and in this band, because he's such an iconic, epic vocalist and frontman for the band. I think that this record is just a brand new era for the band. It has a new lineup of the band. It still has a similar sound. And like you were both saying, it brings these elements in of the past and overall does what it needs to do. It's a great comeback album. It makes a statement. In no shape or form can you look at this and say that this was an abject failure. You can't say that this is bad. Overall, I mean, they dropped a monstrous lead single. It's a great track. They've dropped a quality album with this, and it just opens the door for where they can go from here. I mean, if you're looking at it, we've been doing this for almost 25 years, or they've been doing this for almost 25 years. That's a really long time for a band, and for them to be releasing something of such substance and quality this late in their career is ultimately a great thing. And just going back to what you said, Ben, it's just like the sense of having everyone back together and the sense of community with the band. It's like that's now almost larger than the band. And I just really genuinely at the end of the day feel like the world is a better place with this band in it and this community of fans, and overall this entire group that follows the band is just so many great people, and the music really brings everyone together. I mean, I'm sure all of you have been talking just like I have to people that you haven't talked to in 10 years since One More Light era, or even longer since then, until now with the release of this music. And ultimately, that's a great thing. The band really brings a lot of people together, and the more quality music they release around that, the better. And I think they did a good job with this. Overall, I'm pleased. And I think that it really opens the door for them to keep their foot on the pedal and keep creating really cool shit, because there's also new and experimental shit. They didn't just, lay their hand on one sound in the catalog and say, we need to repeat that again. They kept it fresh, and they did a good job. I think the world tour is going to be incredible for us to follow and for fans to follow. I'm really looking forward to it, because I think this is the most inspired the live band has been. And I couldn't even tell you, maybe since Minutes to Midnight. So I think the world tour is going to be absolutely fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to that as well. It's just a great time to be a fan of the band, and although this has happened extremely quickly and extremely fast, I mean, only about 60 days ago did anyone know anything was happening, and now here we are with the album release. It's ultimately been a great 2 months, and we have a very good future in front of us. I'm glad to say that we're back.
I've been thinking about how this stacks up with previous album releases and just beyond even Linkin Park, just albums in general. And I came to the conclusion that I don't think in my life an album has come out that's ever meant so much to me. For something about me is that I joined LPLive, like I became a real Linkin Park fan when I was like 12 years old. And now here I am 24 now. I turned 25 in like 2 months. So like half my life pretty much has been dedicated to this band now. People outside the Linkin Park community, and obviously this is going to sound stupid because we're like super fans, but like I feel like people inside the Linkin Park community could feel like something in music was missing. Something from like just music overall is missing. And then in the past couple years, you have all these bands who so clearly inspired by Linkin Park, like across all genres, across like EDM, pop, rock, all these artists and bands popping up inspired by their music growing up, myself included. The music I make is like, I aspire to have the same level of creativity and emotion they displayed across each album. And then in the last 7 years, like, we finally had to kind of grow as people without the band for the first time in a long time. And now that we've come back to it all as like changed people, we've gone through relationships, we've gone through life, we've gone through so much, every individual person. And now to all be back again, like to catch up with everyone again, to see how like people react, to see like people come to the shows, to see people reply to us on Twitter, to see people read our posts again. To me, it kind of just goes beyond the album. It goes beyond the band. It's all really shows me that like the Linkin Park community is something I don't think any other fan base kind of gets to experience. And with From Zero, not only do we get to celebrate our favorite band coming back, but we get to celebrate the fact that everyone's back. All our friends from the internet are back. All our friends from real life are back with, like, I can't tell you a single person who hasn't, like, kind of known me in the last, like, 10 years who has hit me up about this. And I'm like, it's just like, wow. Like, that's the power of Linkin Park, is that they bring people together through the struggles we faced. And now we've come here. The band sounds better than ever. They look so happy. They're doing what they're meant to do. This is a band, when you see them now, you understand, like, of course they have to do this. Of course they would come back, because this is kind of just, this is who they are. Like, this is their legacy. Why should they have to stop? Even Chester wouldn't have wanted them to stop. And now here we are finally taking steps into a future that we have no idea what comes next, but we're excited for every step of the way. Beyond, I didn't even talk about the music in this, but like seeing them at a new happiness and a new level of creativity, and just happy to be Linkin Park again, I think as really, it made my life better. It took away a lot of the stresses and like anxieties that have developed over the last couple of years. It just feels like everything's right again. And maybe that's just my life, but like, I think a lot of people feel the same. That's like, things might get better. Things might be okay again. And I think that's what From Zero kind of represents to me.
There's still a lot of things that feel wrong in the world to me, but like,
easily. For sure.
There's something that was missing that I had kind of made peace with the fact that may never happen again. That's back. You know, for a long time, I kind of thought that, you know, maybe Linkin Park, if they ever come back, maybe they'll do, like, just because of how abruptly things ended with the circumstances that they did, maybe they'll come back and do like one more album or one more tour or something, just because, you know, they never got a chance to say goodbye. And now here we are, where it feels like not just that they came back, but that there's a future. I've been around this community longer than most people have, and I'm just as excited to keep going, seeing what happens with you guys and with everybody else out there.
I wouldn't say, like, I didn't truly become like a hardcore fan, I guess, probably to like 1,000 Suns, even though I heard the band, and I was a kid and I was going to shows with my dad in the Meteor era. But like, no, I mean, that's the huge thing for me, is when I did become a hardcore fan and I got like into the community, that's when I realized what Linkin Park actually was. They're not just a band. It's a literal like community, a family that you get, especially, and to have that back is huge. And I think that like From Zero kind of encapsulates like all of like how we feel about going forward and everything, because they are like, the whole double entendre thing is just so true. And I think this album was a genius comeback album. And I now view Paper Cuts truly was the closing of a chapter to make the way forward from zero. And I think it's exactly what you said. That this album really shows a future. Because like you, Anthony, I had accepted. I didn't think they were actually going to come back. I kind of had a view in my head where I was like, all right, they're going to come back now or they're not. And then it was past that point. And then when they did, I was like, oh snap, we're cooking. And like Dylan said, we are so fucking back. That has been the theme for the past 2 months. You've seen it at the shows, people holding signs, but yeah, we are so fucking back. It's never been a greater time to be a Linkin Park fan and in the community.
I mean, kind of wrapping this up, it's like you just have to ask yourself a question, like, is the world better with LP in it or not? I mean, is it a fucking shame that Chester's not here right now to continue in this band? Yes. Is it a complete shame what happened to the band in 2017? Yes, because things were really rolling in 2017, and that was ultimately a really great year. Is it a shame that Rob Borden is not a part of this right now? Yes. Is it a shame that Brad's not able to play on stage right now? Yes. All those things are true. But at the same time, it's also very true that band has made a great album as the comeback, and they've really solidified their future and opened the door to a lot of new possibilities. It's also true that they've delivered the best produced live show that they've ever had in the history of the band. There's so many other things that are true. Like, did they just find a badass front woman to lead this band with Mike? Yes. There's so many things that are true that are positive about this band right now that really bring up the feelings of negativity that were there, the feelings of sadness, or, you know, all those things that were there for so long and they've just weighed on people's minds for 7 years and also for the past 2 months about certain things. But I think ultimately the world is better with the band in it, and they're doing the best they can, and everyone is pretty much in agreement that this is a good thing. And I'm pretty happy with the album, and I think a lot of people really will be too. And I think once people can give it a chance that really aren't on board with it, of course some people aren't going to like it, but I think once people give it a shot, they're going to say, whoa, that's pretty damn good.
The world sure as hell isn't worse with Linkin Park in it, so why not be happy about it?
If we're going down, we might as well have some Linkin Park music with us.
The jams will be tasty.
Facts. I'll take Two-Face to the grave. Like, me and Stained are in it for the long run. Maybe we'll come back in a couple months once we've had time to like settle in with the album and give some like another track by track kind of run on how we feel later on. But yeah, this has been LPLive's track by track review of the new album From Zero, which we have waited 7 long years for. Like we said, we're glad to be back. Linkin Park is back. LPLive is back. We never really went anywhere, but we sure as hell aren't going anywhere. All right, we've had Mr. Ben up top, Anthony A-Stat in the corner, Haninator Mark right here. I am Rogue Soul, Dylan. It has been a pleasure. We will see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.